She sang while she scrubbed the marble. She didn't know he was listening. My loves, this is the kind of story I usually keep to myself. Destiny Graham is 27. Black, beautiful, braids threaded with gold rings, black-framed glasses fogging over the steam of a coffee she pours to the exact millimeter. She is the live-in housemaid of a mansion where men decide who eats and who disappears. Vincent Calloway hands her his empty glass without looking at her face. That is her whole world. A tight black and white uniform, a spotless white apron, low shoes on cold stone. Kang Ji-hoon owns the house, 36. They call him the Quiet One. Dark Italian suit, white shirt, a watch worth more than her year, and a koi fish, tattooed in black and gray, climbing the left side of his neck, tail curling toward the nape, never fully hidden by a collar. Then the elder came, Yoon Sang-hoon, jade ring, wooden cane, a marriage arranged like a shipping contract. Destiny was pouring the tea when Ji-hoon refused and said he already had someone. Every head in that room turned. Aigu, stay with me, my love, because the next thing that landed on his desk was a piece of paper with her name on it. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Destiny Graham counted the seconds out loud, under her breath, while the water climbed through the grounds. 40, 41. At 44, she lifted the kettle and the ribbon of steam broke clean off the rim. The kitchen of the Kang house was still dark at the far end, only the two lamps over the marble lit, and she worked inside that small circle of light like it belonged to her. 4 minutes, that was the window. Between the moment the coffee finished and the moment the man upstairs came down the east staircase, she had 4 minutes, and in 18 months she had never once been late. She poured. She wiped the lip of the cup with the corner of a folded cloth. Then she set the saucer down on the long table at the third seat from the head, not the second, not the fourth, and turned it until the handle pointed at 4 o'clock. Behind her, the service door swung. "You're singing again," Loretta Bishop said. Destiny had not noticed she'd started. Something low, something her grandmother used to hum over a sink in Baltimore, words half gone. She kept polishing the rail of the sideboard and let the last note fall away. "Nobody's up," she said. "Somebody's always up in this house." Loretta came in slow, the beaded chain of her reading glasses swinging against her cardigan. She set a stack of pressed linen on the counter, squared it, and then stood there looking at the coffee like it had said something to her. Third seat. Third seat. You know what happens the day you put it at the second? Nothing happens. Destiny pushed her glasses up with the back of her wrist, her hands full. He drinks it, and he doesn't look up. "That's what happens," Loretta said. The house woke the way it always did. Not with voices, with sound underneath sound. A door 2 floors up. The soft thud of a car door in the courtyard. The murmur of Koreans somewhere near the front hall. 2 men, one of them laughing quietly and cutting the laugh short. Destiny moved through it. She had learned the geography of this place, the way you learn a language, by getting it wrong first. The East Wing was hers to clean before 10. The library was hers Tuesdays. The corridor with the black lacquer doors was nobody's, ever, and she had stopped wondering about it around month 3, or told herself she had. She was on the second landing with a cloth in her hand when the front doors opened below, and Vincent Calloway came in out of the cold with his coat still on and a glass already in his fist. He handed it up to her without breaking stride, not to her hand, into the air beside her hip, the way a man sets something down on a table. She caught it before it dropped. Ice knocked against the sides. He was already 3 steps past her, talking over his shoulder to the man behind him about tonnage at the Newark terminal, and he had not turned his head, and she understood with total clarity that he could not have described her face if someone had asked him at gunpoint. She looked at the glass, a ring of whiskey at the bottom, thin as a coin. Vincent, a second voice, from the door, one of the men who came with him, younger, holding a folio. The projections. In the car, Calloway said. He'd reached the top of the landing by then, and he stopped there, one hand on the newel post, and he swept his eyes back down over the hall the way a man surveys a room he has already bought. The look passed across the girl on the stairs holding his glass, and did not slow down. Tell Kang I'm not sitting through another morning of him saying nothing at me. 9 figures deserves a sentence. They went into the west corridor, the doors shut. Destiny stood there a moment with the cold weight in her hand. Then she carried it downstairs and washed it. "He do that thing," Loretta said, not a question. She was at the sink with her sleeves pushed to the elbow. "He did." Destiny set the glass in the rack, upside down. "It's a glass. It's never a glass, baby." The kitchen clock ticked. Somewhere above them, a chair scraped. Loretta dried her hands and turned around and leaned back against the counter, and when she spoke again, her voice had dropped into a register Destiny had only heard from her twice. Once when a driver got fired, once when a girl from the 3rd floor packed her things at midnight and left without saying goodbye to anyone. "Sit down a minute. I've got the library." "The library's been there 100 years. Loretta pulled out a stool with her foot. "Sit." Destiny sat. She kept her back straight. She always did. The uniform was cut close, black and white, the apron white enough to hurt your eyes, and she wore it like a woman wears armor she chose herself. She had chosen it. That was the part nobody in this house knew. "How long you been here now?" 18 months. "And in 18 months, how many times has that man upstairs looked at you?" Destiny turned the answer over before she gave it. "Which man?" Loretta's mouth moved. Not a smile. "You know which." Down the hall, a door opened and closed, and both women held still for the length of a breath, and then the footsteps went the other way. "He looks at the coffee," Destiny said. "He drinks the coffee at 7:12 every morning of his life," Loretta said, "and last Thursday he came down at 7:20, and it was cold, and he drank it anyway, and he didn't say one word about it." She let that sit. "You know what a man like that does when the coffee's cold?" "He sends it back. He sends the person back. And you're still here." Loretta picked up her glasses, put them on, took them off again. "I've worked houses 40 years, and I have never once been wrong about this, and I'm not enjoying being right now. There are 2 kinds of trouble in a place like this. The kind that comes at you from a man like Calloway, and the kind that comes at you from a man who doesn't do anything at all. Nothing's happening. Nothing's the most dangerous thing that ever happened to a girl in a house like this." Loretta reached over and touched 2 fingers to the back of Destiny's hand. Brief. "Just keep your eyes down a while longer. That's all I'm saying. Whatever's coming through that front gate this week, let it come and go without learning your name." Destiny stood up and smoothed the apron flat. "Nobody in this house knows my name," she said, and it came out lighter than she meant it, and Loretta didn't laugh. "Then explain something to me." Loretta folded her arms. "Payroll runs Fridays. Every girl on this floor gets an envelope with a printed slip inside. Name at the top, hours, the whole thing. Yours comes with no slip, never has. 18 months. Destiny picked up her cloth. "I'm paid the same." "I didn't say you weren't paid." Loretta let her eyes go past her, to the door and back. "I said somebody in this house took your name off a piece of paper and put it somewhere else, and in 40 years, I have seen that done for exactly 2 reasons. What are they?" "To protect a woman," Loretta said, "or to hide one." Destiny looked at the rack of upturned glasses drying in the light, and the answer she had for that was one she couldn't give in this kitchen, so she gave the other one. "Maybe it's a clerical error." "Baby?" Loretta shook her head slowly and turned back to the sink. Nothing in this house is an error. The library took her past 10. She worked the shelves left to right, spine by spine, the way she'd been taught the first week. And when she got to the low case beneath the window, she found a book pulled forward half an inch out of the row. Korean characters down the spine in faded gold. Someone had been reading standing up, in the dark, and had shoved it back in a hurry. She pushed it flush with one finger. Then she pulled it back out and opened it. Half the margins were written in pencil, small, a hand that pressed hard. Korean down one page, and, on the facing page, in the same hand, 3 lines of English underlined twice. She read them standing in the window light, with the cloth still over her shoulder. A man who is feared does not have to be known. A man who is known can be taken apart. Choose. Underneath, in different ink, newer, someone had written a single word and crossed it out so thoroughly the paper had torn. Destiny closed the book. She put it back in the row, spine flush, exactly the depth of every book beside it, and then she stood there for a second longer, with her palm flat against the shelf. She wiped the shelf. She wiped the one below it. She did not look at that row again. At 11, the courtyard filled with cars, not the usual 2, 6, black, nose to tail, and the drivers stayed in them with the engines running. Park Min-jae came through the kitchen at a jog with his earpiece cord swinging and stopped dead when he saw her and put both hands up like she'd caught him. "Nuna," he said, "please tell me there's food. There's food for 6 people at 1 o'clock. Make it 8. He was already opening the cold room. No, make it 9. Maybe 9. He came out with a rice cake in his teeth, spoke around it, gave up, swallowed. Sorry. Long night. Who's coming? Min-jae's dimple went flat. That was all. The smile just stopped being there, and it was the fastest Destiny had ever seen the temperature drop in a room without anyone raising their voice. Tea service in the East Room at 1, he said. The good set, the one with the crane on it. That set doesn't come out. Today it comes out. He backed toward the door. And Destiny, when you serve, you pour and you go. Don't wait by the wall. Don't ask if anyone wants more. I always wait by the wall. Not today, Nuna. He was gone. She stood in the cold room doorway a moment longer than she needed to. Through the window over the sink, she watched the 6 cars sit there with their exhaust curling white in the cold, drivers behind the wheel, nobody getting out. 10 minutes, 12. Whoever was inside the middle car was waiting for a specific hour, and the hour had not come yet, and the entire house was holding still for a man who had not put a foot on the gravel. Then she went and got the crane set. It lived in a cabinet in the butler's pantry, behind a glass door with a lock, and Loretta had the key on the chain with the little gold cross, and when Destiny asked for it, Loretta looked at her for a long second before she handed it over. "Who told you to get that out?" Min-jae. Min-jae doesn't decide what comes out of that cabinet. Then somebody told Min-jae. Loretta's hand closed around the cross at her throat. She held it the way other people hold a railing. "Aigu," she said quietly. She'd picked the word up in this house years before Destiny arrived, and she used it like punctuation. Wash it in the bowl, not the sink. If it chips, we're both out the door. Destiny washed each piece by hand in a basin of warm water, one at a time, and dried them on a cloth she'd laid across her forearm. 11 pieces. She counted them twice. On the underside of the pot, there was a ring of characters she couldn't read, and a small chip already there, old, browned at the edge, and she felt an unreasonable relief at finding a wound she hadn't made. At 12:40, she carried the tray up the service stair, and the house had gone quiet in a way that had weight to it. The East Room had 2 doors. She used the small one. Inside, the long table had been cleared of everything. No papers, no glasses, nothing but wood, and the chairs on the far side were already occupied. Kang Ji-hoon stood at the window with his back to the room. She had seen him 1,000 mornings, and she still did the thing she did every time, which was to fix her eyes on the tray and keep them there. Charcoal suit, white shirt, the collar sat where it always sat, and above it the black and gray tail of the koi curled up the left side of his neck and disappeared under the line of his hair, and there was a watch on his left wrist that she had once, in her first month, priced online at 2 a.m, and then closed the laptop feeling stupid. He didn't turn around when the door opened. He turned around when she set the tray down. "Leave it," he said. "Sir?" "No." He crossed to the table. "Leave it there and stay." Destiny stopped with her hands still on the tray. There were footsteps in the corridor, several, uneven, one of them accompanied by a soft double tap that took her a moment to identify as a cane. "Poor when he sits," Ji-hoon said. His voice never went above the level of ordinary speech, and it filled the room anyway. "Him first, then me. Then you stand at the wall behind my chair and you do not leave this room until I say." Min Jae had told her the exact opposite 2 hours ago. She didn't say so. "Yes, sir." Destiny. It stopped her hands entirely. 18 months. He had said it maybe 4 times, and every time it landed like a stone dropped down a well, and she never heard it hit bottom. "Whatever is said at this table," he said, "you did not hear it. I never do." Something moved at the edge of his mouth and was gone before it became anything. The double doors opened. Yoon Sang-hoon came in the way weather comes in, not fast. He was a heavy man, short, navy 3-piece, a wide silk tie knotted big and old-fashioned, the jade ring catching light when his hand moved on the cane. The white scar through his right eyebrow made his face look permanently half-amused. Behind him came 2 men who did not sit and did not speak, and they positioned themselves at the doors like furniture that had been carried in. Ji-hoon bowed. Not deeply. Enough. The old man took the head of the table without being offered it, and he set the cane against the wood with a click, and only then did he see her. He looked at Destiny for 3 full seconds. She kept her chin level and her eyes on the middle distance, hands folded, exactly as she'd been trained at 19 in a hotel in Baltimore, and she felt the look go over her face and her braids and the gold rings threaded through them and down the line of the black and white uniform and back up again. Then Yoon Sang-hoon smiled at Ji-hoon and said something in Korean, 4 words, "Pleasant." Ji-hoon answered in one. The old man laughed, a dry little sound, and waved his hand, and Destiny understood that whatever had just been asked about her had been dismissed, and she also understood, from the way Ji-hoon's jaw held after he spoke, that it hadn't been. She lifted the pot, and her hand was steady, and she made it steady by doing what she always did, which was to give her whole attention to the one small task in front of her, and let the rest of the room become weather. She poured. The old man first. Steam came off the cup in a thin twist. She moved to Ji-hoon's right, poured, set the pot down with the handle turned away from the table's edge, and stepped back to the wall. The room settled. Yoon Sang-hoon lifted his cup, breathed the steam, and did not drink. Then he spoke to the doors without turning his head, and the 2 men who had come in with him stepped out and pulled the doors shut, and Destiny felt the room shrink to 4 people and a teapot. Yoon's cane hand lifted an inch off the wood. The girl stays, Ji-hoon said. "In my house, the help pours and leaves. This is not your house." The old man made a small sound in his throat, amused, and let it go, and Destiny understood that he had let it go the way a man puts a receipt in his pocket. "Your father," he said, in English now, "used to keep me waiting an hour before every conversation that mattered. He thought it made him bigger." He set the cup down, untouched. You keep me waiting 6 months, so. You had my answer 6 months ago. I had a boy's answer. The jade ring turned once around the old man's finger. Today I want a man's. Ji-hoon leaned back. His hand found the arm of the chair. Then ask it properly. The old man's eyes crinkled at the corners. He reached into his jacket, and what he brought out was not a paper and not a phone. It was a photograph, printed, the kind that comes in a folder. He laid it face down on the bare wood and pushed it across the table with 2 fingers, slowly, all the way, until it touched the base of Ji-hoon's cup. Seo Hai-won, he said. Her father owns the water. You own what moves on it. I know who she is. You know her name. That is not the same as knowing what she is worth to you in March. The old man finally drank, 1 small swallow, and set the cup down and turned it a quarter turn on the saucer. 29, educated, speaks 4 languages, and has never once been photographed anywhere she should not have been. Her father will not sign a birth agreement with a man who has no wife and no children and no reason on this earth to keep his word past Tuesday. My word has held 9 years. Your word has held because men are afraid of you, Yoon said. Fear is a lease, not a deed. Nobody in the room breathed for a beat. Destiny looked at the floor 2 feet in front of her shoes and did not move, and heard her own pulse in her ears, and stayed exactly where she had been told to stay. Ji-hoon did not touch the photograph. Turn it over, Yoon Sang-hoon said. It costs you nothing to look. Then it's worth nothing. Everything in this room was worth nothing until your father made it worth something, and he did that by marrying a woman he had met twice. The old man's hand flattened on the table beside the photograph. Spring. That is what I am giving you. Announce it at the reception, sign in spring, and by summer, no one at that table can move a container without your name on the paper. Ji-hoon was quiet. Along the wall, Destiny counted the seconds the way she had counted them over the kettle at 6 in the morning. 40, 41, and Kang Ji-hoon reached out, but his hand went past the photograph entirely, to the teapot, and he refilled the old man's cup himself, and then he set the pot down and lifted his eyes, and for the first time that morning, he looked at the wall behind his own chair. Right at her. He held her eyes for the length of 1 breath, then he turned back to the old man and said, No. Yoon Sang-hoon set his cup down without hurry. The porcelain met the wood with a small click, and that click was the loudest thing in the room. No is a word for young men, he said. Then I'm young. You are 36. And the answer is still no. The old man's hand found the head of his cane and rested there. He was smiling. That was the part Destiny would remember later, that he smiled the way a man smiles at a dog that has finally learned to sit. Explain it to me, Yoon said, slowly, so I can carry the explanation back to men who will want one. Ji-hoon turned his cup a quarter turn on the saucer. Seo will sign. Seo will sign a marriage, not a handshake. Seo will sign, because in 18 months, every crane on that water moves when I say move, and he knows it. His daughter is a ribbon on a box he already sold. His daughter is his pride. His pride is worth 9%. I checked. Something in the old man's jaw shifted. He looked at the photograph still lying face down beside Ji-hoon's cup, untouched, unturned, a small white rectangle that had cost somebody a great deal of planning. You did not even look at her. I don't need to. Yoon laughed, 1 syllable of it, dry as paper. Your father looked. My father looked twice, and married the second look. I'm not my father. No, Yoon agreed. Your father had a wife who could sit at a table and make 5 families believe they were friends. What do you have? And Ji-hoon said, without lifting his voice, without lifting his eyes from the cup, I have someone. Destiny's hands were folded in front of her apron. They stayed folded. 18 months of standing at walls had taught her body what to do when a room changed temperature, and her body did it. Spine straight, chin level, gaze on the middle distance above the far chair, the way she'd been taught at 19, in a Baltimore ballroom, by a woman who slapped her wrist every time she fidgeted. Inside, something dropped. Yoon leaned back. The chair took his weight with a groan. Someone. Yes. A name would help me. You'll have one. When? When? At the reception, the old man's hooded eyes went half shut, and he was quiet for a long moment, and in that quiet, Destiny could hear a car idling somewhere down in the courtyard, and a woman's voice from the kitchen 2 floors below, laughing at something. You are telling me, Yoon said finally, that you will stand in a room in front of Seo Il-nam, in front of the Chos, in front of every man who has waited 6 months for you to say yes, and you will produce a woman. I'm telling you the announcement will be made, just not the one you wrote. And if the woman is not suitable, then she'll be suitable by the time you meet her. Yoon's cane came up off the floor an inch and set back down. It was the closest thing to temper he had shown all morning. You think this is a card you can play once and put back in your sleeve. It is not. A man who invents a wife in front of that room and then does not have her by spring is a man who lied to that room. Do you understand what you are buying? Time. You are buying a debt, and debts in this house get collected. Then send someone to collect. The old man stood. It took him 2 motions, and both of his men were through the door before his cane found the floor again, and one of them reached for the photograph. Leave it, Yoon said. The man left it. At the door, Yoon stopped. He didn't turn all the way around, just enough for the light from the window to find the thin white line through his right eyebrow. Ji-hoona. Sir, whoever she is, a pause, have her learn which fork. Then the doors closed, and there were footsteps in the corridor, and then there weren't. Destiny counted to 10 before she moved. She had 11 pieces of porcelain to gather and a chipped teapot to carry down 2 flights of stairs without breathing wrong, and she was reaching for the tray when he said her name. Destiny. 5 times now, or 6. Sir, leave the tray. It has to be washed before the... Leave it. She left it. He was still sitting. He hadn't moved since the old man stood, and the koi on his neck rose out of his collar as he turned his head, and he looked at the doors, not at her. You heard all of it, he said. I heard nothing, sir. You told me I heard nothing. The smallest thing happened at the corner of his mouth. It was gone before it finished. 9 o'clock, he said. My office. Don't knock. Then he picked up the photograph, still face down, and put it in his inside jacket pocket without looking at the front of it, and he walked out. Loretta Bishop found the chip on the teapot within 4 seconds of the tray hitting the counter, and Destiny watched her find it, and watched her decide. That's old, Loretta said. That's old, Destiny agreed. The reading glasses came off the beaded chain and went on. Loretta turned the pot over, ran a thumb across the base, put it down. 2 hours you were up there. 90 minutes. 90 minutes, standing at a wall in a room with the doors shut. She started stacking cups. Girl, I have worked in 6 houses in 40 years, and I have never once been asked to stay in a room with the doors shut. You know why? Because you serve and you leave. Because what a woman hears, a woman can repeat, and men who work in the dark do not put a mouth in the room and then let it walk out of the room. She set the last cup down harder than she needed to. Unless... Destiny ran the water. It came out cold and she let it. Unless what? Unless the mouth isn't a mouth to him. Loretta pulled her cardigan closed. Unless it's something else. Miss Loretta, I'm not saying it to be ugly. I know. I'm saying it because in this house, the difference between those 2 things is whether you get an envelope or whether you get put in a car. She picked up the tray. There. That's the whole sermon. Wash the grouse. Crane. Whatever it is, wash it. Destiny washed all 11 pieces again, though they hadn't been used by more than 2 men, though it was a waste of 40 minutes she didn't have. Her hands knew the motion. Her head was somewhere on the 2nd floor. I have someone. She was 27 years old, and she had built her whole life on not being the kind of woman who let a sentence do that to her. At 2, she carried the linens up the west corridor, and Vincent Calloway was still there. He had been there since morning. There was a chair by the window that nobody ever sat in, and he had dragged it around to face the hallway, and there was an empty tumbler on the sill, and a phone in his hand, and a coat over his arm, and when she came past with the stack of linen, he put one shoe out into the corridor. Not far, just far enough that she had to stop or step over it. Sweetheart. She stopped. He's been in that room since 1, hasn't he? I wouldn't know, sir. You brought the tea. I bring a lot of things, sir. Calloway smiled with the mustache and not the eyes. He turned the phone face down against his thigh. 9 figures, he said. You know what 9 figures means? It means a large number, sir. It means I financed the crane that pays for the roof over your head, and I have been sitting in a hallway since 8 o'clock this morning, like a man waiting on a dentist. He tipped his glass at her. Take that. She took it. It was the 2nd glass of his she'd carried that day, and it was only 2 in the afternoon. You tell him I was here. I'm not permitted to speak to Mr. Kang, sir. Everybody in this house is permitted to speak to Mr. Kang. They just don't want to. His shoe came back in. Friday, he said, mostly to himself. Fine. Friday then. I'll say it in front of people. She carried the linens the rest of the way and set them down in the airing room, and stood there for a second, with both hands flat on the shelf. At 4, Park Min-jae came through the kitchen with his earpiece cable swinging loose, and stole a piece of pear off the cutting board. Hey, uniform girl. That's not my name. I know your name. I'm being charming. He ate the pear in 2 bites. Everybody upstairs is in a mood, and nobody will tell me why. And I'm the one who has to plan a reception for 200 people in a house where nobody tells me anything. 200? 212. Confirmed as of this morning. He counted on his fingers. 6 from Busan, the Cho family, the port people, the American with the loud shoes. Mr. Calloway. Mr. Calloway. Min-jae's friendly face did something unfriendly for half a second. Yeah, him. He hopped up to sit on the counter, which no one was allowed to do, which he did every day. You served the tea. What happened in there? Tea happened. Come on. 2 men drank tea, and one of them left. Which one left? The one with the cane. Min-jae whistled low. Halmione's boy said no. I wouldn't know. You would absolutely know. You were standing right there. I asked you to serve and leave, and instead you... He stopped. He looked at her differently, and she watched him arrive at it, and she watched him not like where he arrived. He told you to stay. He did. He countermanded me. I don't know that word, sir. Min-jae. Just Min-jae, God. He slid off the counter. Okay, fine. That's fine. He was already halfway to the door, and he turned back, and the dimple came out, and he said, Hey, reception's Friday. There'll be 100 glasses breaking, and Loretta will need bodies. If you get stuck out there, find me. I'll walk you through the service corridor so you don't end up in front of the wrong table. I know the corridors. Not the ones I lock. He grinned. Friday. He was gone before she could answer. She turned back to the sink, and Kang Ji-hoon was standing in the doorway. She did not know how long. Long enough. The koi showed above his collar, and his hands were in his pockets, and he was looking at the doorway Min-jae had gone through, the way a man looks at a door he's deciding whether to lock. Sir. 9 o'clock, he said. Not 8:50, not 9:10. Yes, sir. He left. He hadn't come into the kitchen for anything. He hadn't taken anything, hadn't asked for anything, hadn't spoken to Loretta, who stood at the pantry door holding a stack of folded linen and saying absolutely nothing at all with her entire face. At 9 o'clock, she didn't knock. The office smelled like the inside of a cedar drawer. One lamp on, the desk in the middle of it, and a single sheet of paper turned to face the chair she hadn't been offered. Sit, he said. She sat with her back off the chair and her hands in her lap. Read it. It was one page. It was in English on the left and Korean on the right, and someone had typed it that afternoon, and the Korean column was one line longer than the English one. An agreement. Term. From tonight until the morning after the reception. Compensation. A figure with more zeros than her father's house had cost. Obligations. Appear as the personal companion of the party of the first part. Answer to a prepared history. Wear what is provided. Do not correct him in public. Do not accept a drink from a hand that is not hers or his. And at the bottom, a line that had not been typed by a lawyer, because no lawyer writes like this. This agreement is theater. Nothing in it is true. She read that line twice. You want me to lie to a room of 200 people, 212, for 4 days, for one night. The 4 days are so the one night doesn't fall apart. And when it's over, you go back to the kitchen with money you didn't have, and no one in this house says your name again. The lamp buzzed faintly. She could hear it, because neither of them was saying anything. A prepared history, she read aloud. Prepared by who? By me, tomorrow. So I don't get to know who I am until Wednesday. You'll know who you are on Wednesday. Everyone else will know Friday. And what am I? She turned the page a degree so the lamp caught the Korean column. A girl you met where? A woman with what parents? Because there will be a man in that room who has a phone in his pocket and a cousin at a bank, and by Saturday morning he'll know that nobody with my face has ever eaten dinner in a house like this one. He'll know that a woman with your face has been in this house 18 months. That's worse. That's better. He tapped one knuckle on the desk. The lie that survives is the one built on something true. You've been here. People have half seen you. Nobody looks at the uniform, so nobody can swear to what they saw. On Friday, they'll be told they've been walking past me and mine for a year and a half and never noticed. Men hate to admit they missed something. They'll fill in the rest themselves. She sat with that. You've thought about this longer than one afternoon. He didn't answer that. Why me? She said. Because there are 9 women in this county who would do it for the money, and every one of them is owned by somebody at that party. He came around the desk and leaned back against the edge of it, arms folded. And because you've stood in 11 rooms this year, holding a tray, while men said things they'd kill a stranger for hearing, and none of it has ever come back to me. Not once. That's not a compliment. That's a background check. It's both. She looked at the paper. She thought about the envelope that came every 2 weeks with no name printed on it. She thought about the word in the library book, scratched through until the paper tore. Pen, she said. He gave her one. It was heavier than it needed to be. She signed her name, Destiny Graham, full, the way she'd been taught, no flourish, and then she held the pen above the page and did not give it back. One condition, she said. The terms aren't. One condition, or I hand you the pen and go finish the silver. His arms unfolded. Say it. She stood up. In the low shoes she came to his shoulder, and she put the pen down on the desk between them, so that neither of them was holding it. In front of them, I'll be whatever you need. I'll laugh at what you say. I'll put my hand where you want it. I'll answer to a history I've never lived, and I won't correct you once. She let a beat go by. But when we're alone, when there's nobody in the room to sell it to, don't play with me. Not one word of it. Not a look. The second the door closes, it's over, and you go back to being a man I bring coffee to at 7:12. That's the condition, she said. He looked at the pen on the desk instead of at her. Explain it to me. You already understood it. Explain it anyway. Because on Friday, a room full of people is going to watch you put your hand on my back, she said. And I'll let you. And I'll be good at it. And I've been good at things I didn't mean since I was 19 years old. That part costs me nothing. She kept her voice level. It took work. But a woman can carry a lie in front of 200 strangers all night long and walk out of it clean. She can't carry it in an empty hallway. In an empty hallway, there's nobody to perform for, so whatever happens there is just what happens. And I'm not going to spend Saturday trying to work out which one of those two men I was standing next to. The lamp buzzed. So when the door shuts, she said, be nothing to me. That's all I'm asking. Be exactly what you were on Tuesday. Something moved behind his face, and whatever it was not agreement. He was quiet for 4 seconds. 5. Somewhere below them a door closed and a car started in the courtyard, and neither of them looked toward the sound. Fine. Say it. When we are alone, he said, I won't pretend. She almost heard it. It went past her, the way a word goes past you, in a language you only half speak, and later, much later, she would come back to that sentence and take it apart and find what had been sitting inside it the whole time. Then we're agreed. We're agreed. He picked up the page, folded it once, and put it in the drawer. He didn't lock the drawer, which she noticed. Wednesday, you learn the history. Thursday, the dress comes. Friday, you don't leave my side between 8 and 11. Yes, sir. Not sir. Not Friday. Ji-hoon. He looked at her the way he had looked at her from the wall that afternoon. One more thing, he said. Min-jae. Her chin came up half an inch. What about him? He talks to you. He talks to everyone. He's 26. He locks corridors for you. He offered to. Don't take the offer. He was already turning toward the window, hands going back into his pockets, and the words came out flat and quiet and absolutely certain. Friday night, the only door you walk through is one I open. He's a good kid, she said. He is. That isn't the part I'm discussing. Then say the part you are discussing. He turned back from the window, and for once, he took his time about it. On Friday, there will be men in this house who have spent 6 months betting on what I want. They will watch how you stand. They will watch who you look at when you laugh. If one of them decides the thing between you and me is not the true thing in the room, then everything I said to that old man this afternoon becomes a story he gets to finish. A pause. So no, not the corridor. Not the offer. That's business. Yes. Then I'll do it as business. Good. She was 3 steps from the office door when he said, Destiny. She stopped. Wednesday, he said, bring the book back. Her hand went still on the handle. The one on the low shelf, he said, under the window. You put it back a ½ centimeter too straight. Wednesday. 10 in the morning, Destiny carried the Korean book down the east stairs with both hands, the way she carried the crane service. Ji-hoon was already at the library table. He had cleared it. No papers, no phone. One chair pulled out on the far side. Sit. She set the book down in front of him and sat. The apron pulled at her waist when she did. She smoothed it flat. He opened the book to the page with the pencil in the margins and turned it around so it faced her. Read the underlined part out loud. A man who is feared does not have to be known. A man who is known can be taken apart. Choose. Whose handwriting? I don't know. You have a guess. Guesses get people fired. Something moved at the corner of his mouth and went away. He closed the book without touching the scratched-out word, and that was the whole answer she got. Then he slid a single sheet across the wood. Typed. 14 lines. "This is who you are on Friday." She read it once, quickly, the way she read a room. Then again, slower. Her name stayed her name. That surprised her enough that she looked up. "You kept it. A lie survives on true things," he said. "Your name is a true thing." The rest was arranged around the truth like a place setting. Destiny Graham, 27, hospitality, trained at 19, Baltimore, grandmother from Baltimore. 2 years of private household management for a family that would not be named, because families like that were never named. Met Kang Ji-hoon 18 months ago in this house, through the work. Every line was something she had actually lived. The only thing bent was the shape they made together. "They'll ask how," she said. "How it started. They'll ask you, not me. So what do I say? Whatever you'd say if it were true." She put the paper down. "That's not an answer. It's the only one that doesn't crack under a second question." He got up and went to the low shelf and put the book back himself. He did not align it. He left it out 1/2 centimeter, exactly where she had found it, and she watched him do that and understood that the 1/2 centimeter had never been a mistake. They worked until 1. He gave her names. 212 people were coming, and he made her learn 9 of them. Seo Il-nam, who owned the water, and would arrive late so the room would notice. Seo Hae-won, his daughter, who would arrive with him and would look at Destiny for longer than was polite. Yoon Sang-hoon, who would smile at her, and whose smile she should return, and to whom she should say nothing longer than 6 words. Vincent Calloway. Ji-hoon said that name last and did not describe him. "You already know him," he said. "He's given me 2 glasses. On Friday, he doesn't hand you anything. And if he does, he won't." She let that sit. Ji-hoon poured water for himself and then, without a change of expression, poured a second glass and put it in front of her, on her side of the table, and sat back down. It was the first thing anyone in that house had ever put in front of her. She looked at it a moment before she drank. Thursday. The dress came at 4 in the afternoon in a flat white box carried by 2 men who would not let Loretta sign for it. Loretta stood in the doorway of the linen room with her arms folded while Destiny lifted the lid. Emerald, satin, floor length, bare shoulders. Loretta made a sound in her throat. "That's not a uniform." "No." "You going to tell me?" "No." Loretta pushed her reading glasses up her nose with one finger. 18 months you fold his sheets. Now you're wearing a color. Destiny put the lid back on. "Loretta, I'm not asking again. I'm telling you what I'm going to do." She came in and closed the door behind her. "Friday night, I'm going to be in that kitchen until the last plate goes back in the cupboard. If you need to leave that room, you come through the pantry. Not the front, not the west corridor. Nothing's going to happen. 200 people, and a man who's been waiting since Monday to say your name in front of them." Loretta touched the small cross at her neck without seeming to know she was doing it. "Come through the pantry." Friday, at 6, Destiny was still in uniform, counting glassware, with Min Jae's men breathing down the length of the ballroom. At 7:15, she went upstairs to a guest room on the 3rd floor that had been left unlocked for her, and a woman she had never seen was waiting there with a case of pins. At 5 to 8, she stood in front of a mirror and did not recognize the arrangement of things. The braids were the same, gold rings and all. The glasses were the same. The satin was the difference, and the satin did not hide anything the apron had been hiding for 18 months. She put her hand flat on her stomach once, then took it away. Ji-hoon was waiting at the top of the main stair. Charcoal suit, tie already knotted. He looked at her for 2 full seconds, which from him was a long time, and then he looked at the tie. "Something's wrong with it." "Nothing's wrong with it," she said. Fix it anyway. She stepped in and put both hands on the knot. It was perfect. She loosened it a quarter turn and set it back and pressed the silk flat under his collar, over the top edge of the koi, and his chin came up half an inch to give her the room. Neither of them said anything for the length of it. Downstairs, he said. You don't walk behind me. Where do I walk? He put his hand on the small of her back and answered the question that way. The ballroom held 212 people, and the noise of it dropped about 4 feet when they came through the doors. Not all at once. It went down in patches, the way a field goes quiet when something walks into it. The group by the west windows first, then the men around Yoon, then the ones near the bar who had turned to see what the others were looking at. Destiny had served in that room. She knew where the drafts were, which of the doors stuck, which corner of the floor was uneven under the rug. She had never once been looked at in it. His hand stayed where it was. They made it 11 steps before the first man reached them, and after that, the night became a sequence of hands. Ji-hoon introduced her 9 times in the first hour, never the same way twice, and never with a title. Destiny Graham, then a pause, then, if the man deserved it, the rest. She counted the pauses. He gave the full sentence 4 times out of 9. She learned quickly which men counted by which ones he did not give it to. Around 9, a shipping partner from Rotterdam with a wet laugh asked the question everyone had been circling. So how did he find you? Ji-hoon turned his head slightly, not to answer. To watch her answer. He didn't, Destiny said. I found him. The Dutchman blinked. He was standing in the wrong place in his own kitchen, she said. 6 in the morning. I asked him to move. And he moved? Not the first time. The laugh went up 10 feet around them and pulled in the people who hadn't been listening, and Destiny felt the room tilt 1 degree toward her and stay there. Ji-hoon said nothing, but his thumb moved once against the satin at her back, small, and then was still. She had never invented a word of it. That was the thing that stayed with her afterward. The kitchen was real, the 6 in the morning was real, the wrong place was real. He had stood in front of the second cupboard on her 4th morning in the house, and she had said, quietly, Sir, I need that door, and he had looked at her for a moment before stepping aside. The only lie was the tense of it. By 9:30 she understood something else, and it unsettled her more than the looking. He was different. Not warm. He would never be warm, but he was answering questions in more than 4 words. He tipped his glass toward a man's joke instead of waiting it out. When an old woman in gray grabbed his forearm to make a point, he let her keep it there through 2 sentences. Twice she caught men glancing at each other over it. The 3rd time, she followed the glance and found where it landed. Seo Hae-won was standing by the second pillar in an ice-white column dress, pearls at her throat, silver clutch held in both hands at her waist, and she was not looking at Ji-hoon at all. She was looking at his hand on Destiny's back. Her father was 6 feet away, being important at 3 men. Hae-won had stepped out of that circle to see better. Destiny held the look. She had been trained at 19 to hold looks from women in expensive dresses, and she had never lost the habit. Hae-won came over. She came alone, which nobody in that room had expected, and she stopped close enough that only the 3 of them could hear. Ji-hoon-si, Hae-won-si, you look ridiculous. Destiny felt the muscles in his back change under her fingers, because at some point in the last minute, her hand had gone to his back the way his had been on hers. Do I? You laughed. Do I? Twice. Ha-won turned the clutch over in her hands. My father said you were a serious man. He said that was the whole value of the arrangement. Then, to Destiny, in perfect, unhurried English, 18 months? Yes. In this house? Yes. Doing what? Ji-hoon's jaw set. Destiny answered before he could. Everything nobody sees. Haewon's eyes went narrow at the corners, and it was not anger. It was a woman recalculating a sum she had been given wrong. "Aigu," she said softly, almost to herself. Then, louder, pleasant, for the room, "My father wants to say hello before 10. She left. Ji-hoon watched her go and said, without moving his mouth much, "That went well. She's going to tell him. She's going to tell him something. That's not the same." At 10, the room got warmer and the trays went faster, and Destiny caught herself doing the arithmetic of service. 3 trays behind on the west side, the bar running low on the good ice, and had to physically turn her shoulders away from the doors to stop. At 10:20, Loretta appeared at the pantry entrance in the black and white house uniform, holding a tray she did not need to be holding, and found Destiny across the room and looked at her for 4 seconds and went back through the door. At 10:40, Yoon Sang-hoon came. He came slowly, the cane taking his weight every second step, and men opened a path for him without appearing to. He stopped in front of them and looked Destiny up and down once, from the low shoes she was no longer wearing to the gold in her braids. "So," he said, "the tea girl." "Yes, sir," 4 words under her limit. Kang Ji-hoon. Yoon smiled at him with all of his face except the eyes. "Monday you told me you have someone." "I did." "You did not tell me she pours my tea. You didn't ask what she does." Yoon's laugh came out flat and short. He leaned on the cane and turned the jade ring on his finger with his thumb, once around. "Il-nam is here," he said. "He came in person. Do you know what that costs a man like him? He came because the March terms are good. He came because I told him there would be an announcement." Yoon's voice never rose. That was the worst of it. "Before midnight, Ji-hoona. 1 sentence. You are very good at 1 sentence." He inclined his head to Destiny, courteous, complete, terrible, and moved on toward the water. Destiny's mouth had gone dry. She took a step toward the bar out of 18 months of habit, and Ji-hoon's hand closed around her wrist and stopped her without any effort at all. "Not from a stranger's hand," he said. "I was going to get it myself." "Not tonight." He led her instead toward the center of the room under the chandelier, where the floor was clear and the light came straight down, and the movement pulled eyes with it the way movement always did in that house. And that was where Vincent Calloway was waiting, because Vincent Calloway had been waiting since 8 o'clock on Monday morning. He stepped into their path with the whiskey already in his hand, and his face already the color it went at 11 at night. "Kang," he said it loud enough for the pillar. "You've dodged me since Monday." Vincent. 9 figures and a closed door. He swung the tumbler, and some of it went over his knuckles. "You know what I got instead? Silence. And this." He turned. He looked at Destiny properly for the first time in 18 months, and she watched him not know her, and then she watched him know her. His mouth opened. "Oh," Calloway said. "Oh, that's rich." The talking within 20 feet stopped. "That's the girl who takes my glass." Nobody moved. Somewhere behind Destiny, a tray touched a table too hard. "You've had my glass in your hand a dozen times, sweetheart." He was smiling. He turned it out to the room, generous, sharing it. "Wednesday, Monday, twice on Monday. Ask her what she does in this house when there's no one to look at her." He held the tumbler out, straight out, at the level of her waist, the way he had held it in the corridor, and the way he had held it by the stairs. His arm hung there in the light of the chandelier in front of 212 people, and Seo Il-nam, and Yoon Sang-hoon, and Seo Hae-won by the pillar with the clutch in both hands. "Go on," he said. "Old times." Destiny looked at the glass. There was an inch of whiskey left in it, and a smear of his thumbprint on the side, near the rim, where the light caught. She had washed that print off 100 glasses. She knew the shape of it better than she knew his voice. Somebody by the west windows said something in Korean, low, and somebody else answered, lower. Seo Il-nam had turned. He had a small, dry face, and he was watching not Calloway, and not Ji-hoon but her, the way a man watches a number he was told to trust. Yoon had stopped walking, both hands on the cane now, weight forward, patient as furniture. And behind all of them, at the pantry door, Loretta stood with the tray still in her arms, and she was not looking away, and she was not coming forward either, because there was nothing in 40 years of working in houses like this that told her how. 18 months of a hand appearing beside her hip, and her taking it, and neither of them saying anything, and the whole machinery of the house depending on that being invisible. She felt the room settle onto her shoulders like weather, and her hand started to come up. Not because she decided, because it had been trained, at 19, in Baltimore, to come up. She stopped it at her hip. She held it there, flat against the emerald satin, still, the way she had held it in front of the mirror at 8 o'clock, and she did not take the glass, and she did not step back, and she looked Vincent Calloway in the face, and let the silence get long. 10 seconds, 12. Long enough that the smile on him began to come apart. Long enough that somebody near the bar laughed, once, at him. Calloway's arm stayed out. It was shaking a little now, from the weight, from the whiskey, from the thing that was going wrong in front of him, and that he could not name. "Take the glass," he said. And beside her, in the flattest voice she had ever heard him use, Ji-hoon said, "Vincent, just the name." Calloway's head came around, and Ji-hoon reached out and took the tumbler himself. He held the tumbler at chest height, where the whole room could see it, and turned it once in his fingers, as if he were reading a label that wasn't there. "Vincent," he said again, "you've been in my house since Monday." Calloway's mouth opened. Ji-hoon kept going, and he kept going quietly, which was worse. "You waited in the west corridor. You gave your glass to a woman 4 times. You counted the tonnage out loud in my kitchen." He set the tumbler down on the tray of a passing server without looking at the tray. "Everyone here now knows how you behave in a house where you are a guest." A woman near the second pillar laughed into her champagne. Somebody shushed her, badly. 9 figures, Calloway said. His voice had lost the room, and he was still using the volume for it. 9 figures, Kang. 8, Ji-hoon said. "You rounded." Il-nam turned his head slightly. That was all. Somewhere behind Destiny, a man translated the exchange into Korean for someone else, fast, under his breath. Destiny's hand was still at her hip. She could feel her pulse in the satin. 18 months of learning how to be furniture, and the furniture had been named in front of 200 people. Then Ji-hoon put his hand on her back again, and this time he moved her forward half a step, ahead of him, where the light was. "You asked what she does in this house," he said. "She is the woman who chose to stand beside me." Nobody moved. Even the string quartet had let a bar go empty. Everything else you were told about her, you invented on your own time. Calloway looked for an ally, and found a circle of backs. He said something about lawyers. It came out thin. Min Jae had appeared at the edge of the crowd without anyone noticing him arrive, hands folded, earpiece cable running into his collar, and he stayed exactly 2 steps away, which was the polite distance, and also the other kind. "Park will walk you to your car," Ji-hoon said. "I came with the Halloran group. Park will walk you to your car." Min Jae's dimple appeared. It did not reach anything else on his face. Calloway went. The chandelier light followed him across 40 feet of parquet and out through the front doors, and the quartet found the bar again, and the room did what rooms like that always do. It swallowed and moved on, louder than before, because everyone needed to say the same 3 sentences to someone. A man from the Rotterdam group tried to restart the evening by asking Destiny where the dress was from. She told him the truth, which was that she didn't know, and he laughed as though it were wit. Two women who had walked past her for 18 months of Thursday deliveries introduced themselves with both hands. One of them said they must have met before. Destiny said they had, in that corridor, in September, and watched the woman's face work through the arithmetic and choose not to finish it. Ji-hoon stayed close enough that his sleeve touched her arm. He said almost nothing for 10 minutes. Whenever someone leaned in to ask what exactly had happened with Calloway, he moved the conversation with a single question about their own business and let them talk about themselves for as long as they needed. Yoon Sang-hoon came through the noise with his cane and stopped in front of them. "That was expensive," he said in English. "It was cheap," Ji-hoon said. Yoon looked at Destiny for a long moment, longer than the 3 seconds in the East Room. 11 minutes to midnight, he said, and left. Il-nam did not come over. He collected his daughter with a hand and a word, and Haewon looked back once from the doorway, at Destiny, not at Ji-hoon, and inclined her head maybe 2 degrees. Then the Seos were gone too, and the coat check was working, and by 12:30, the ballroom held 11 people, then 4, then the servers stacking chairs. Loretta caught Destiny's eye from the pantry door and mouthed something. Destiny shook her head, once. Loretta let it go and went back in. At 1 in the morning, the last car cleared the gate, and the chandelier dropped to its lowest setting, and the room turned amber and enormous. Destiny stood in the middle of it, with her shoes in her hand. Ji-hoon was at the far end by the terrace glass, tie loose, jacket over the back of a chair, and he had the look of a man who had been standing up straight for 6 hours and had just been given permission to stop. "He announced nothing," she said, her voice carried in the empty. "Yoon gave you until midnight, and you announced nothing. I announced something. You said a sentence about a maid. I said a sentence about a maid. I said a sentence about a maid." She crossed the floor. Her feet ached in a way she would feel for 2 days. "The contract ends tomorrow morning," she said. "That's the term. Signed. So we have, 7 hours of theater left. Let's not waste them being clever." He watched her come. "Tell me what to do for the last 7 hours," she said. "Do you want me at breakfast? Do you want me at the gate when the COs leave? Tell me, and I'll do it. I'm good at it. We established that tonight in front of 212 people. 209. 3 didn't come. Ji-hoon. He hadn't heard her use it since Monday. It stopped him for a second. "Pretend you love me tonight," she said. "That's all I'm asking for. Do it properly until the sun comes up, and then rip it up and I'll go back to counting 44 seconds and putting the cup in the 3rd place. I can do that. I've done harder." The chandelier hummed. Far off, a door closed somewhere in the service wing. "I have never had to pretend," he said. She heard it, and she did the thing she had trained herself out of doing in that house. She took a full second to stand still and let something land. "Don't," she said. "Monday night I told you. When we are alone, I won't pretend. You wrote your name and you didn't hear it. Men say that. I have said very little for 9 years." He came off the glass. "Ask me the question you have been carrying since the library." Whose handwriting? Mine. She had known. She had known since Wednesday when he closed the book without touching the scratched-out line, and she had put the knowing somewhere she couldn't reach. "And the word," she said. "Come here." He went out through the ballroom's side door, and she followed him barefoot down the corridor of black lacquer doors, the one she had cleaned around for 18 months and never entered, and he opened the second one with a key from his own pocket. A small room, a desk, a lamp, a shelf, nothing hung on the walls. On the desk, a payroll ledger, the printed kind, from the accounting office in the city, 3 inches thick. He turned it to the page and put his finger on the line. Row after row of names. And one row, every month, going back 18 months, where the name had been struck out and replaced by a number in pen, same hand as the pencil in the margins. You, he said. Why? Yoon's people read the household lists. Twice a year. Everyone in this business reads the lists. He closed the ledger. A name on a list is a way to reach a man. In month 1, you were a woman who worked here. In month 3, you were something I would not have survived losing, and I did not intend to explain that to anyone with a pen. Month 3. You sang in the kitchen at 6 in the morning. I was on the stairs. You didn't know the house had anyone in it. You never said a word to me. I said your name 4 times in 18 months, he said. Each one cost me a week. She put her hand flat on the ledger like it might move. The word in the book, she said. Your name. I wrote it in the margin of a paragraph about being known, and then I scratched it out until the paper tore, and then I left the book half a centimeter out for a year so you would find it. He almost smiled. You found it in 11 months. You put it back straight. I nearly said something that day. You left it out on purpose, so I'd read a warning about you. I left it out so someone in this house would know I was a person, he said. I chose the person. She laughed. One breath, no sound behind it. Then she stopped laughing. Then I have to tell you something, and you're going to want me out of the house by morning anyway, she said. He waited. I didn't need this job. I've never needed this job. Her chin came up. I ran the residence floor of a hotel in Baltimore at 23. 2 years of estate management after that, for a family I won't name, 6 figures, my own staff. I applied here as a housemaid. I chose the uniform. I know. You don't. Your file is 11 pages, he said. Min Jae's predecessor ran it before you were hired. I know what you left. I have wondered for 18 months why you came. The room was very quiet. My grandmother cleaned rooms at the Bellamy on Charles Street for 31 years, Destiny said. She raised me in a 2-bedroom, 9 blocks from that hotel. In 2019, the building she lived in was bought by a holding company that moved cargo through Newark, and the holding company emptied it in 90 days, and my grandmother died in a rented room in Dundalk that had a heater that didn't work. She was not crying, her hands were shaking, and her face was doing nothing at all. The name on the purchase order was Kang. He took that standing up. So I got a uniform, and I came to see the man, she said. I was going to find one piece of paper, and take it somewhere. That was the whole plan, and it was a stupid plan, and I have had 18 months of access to every room in this house, and I never once opened a drawer. Why? Because in month 4, I watched you carry Loretta's shopping in from the car in the rain and put it away in the wrong cupboards, she said, and I couldn't make the 2 men fit. Ji-hoon opened the desk drawer. He took out a folder, thin, worn at the corner, the kind of thing that has been moved between houses, and put it in her hands. 19 properties, he said. Baltimore, Wilmington, Camden, bought in a package in 2019 by a partner of my father's. I inherited them in 2020, with everything else, including a list of what he had done with them. He didn't touch the folder again. Your grandmother's building is on page 6. She turned to page 6. She read her own street name in someone else's typeface. Vincent Calloway, Ji-hoon said, financed that package. She looked up. 9 years ago, I gave a man my word that I would not become my father. It has cost me every relationship I might have had, and it is the only thing in this house that is actually mine. He nodded at the folder. Take it anywhere. You wanted one piece of paper, that's 400 pages, and the man whose money is in it stood under my chandelier tonight and told a room what you were for. Destiny closed the folder. Then she crossed the last 2 feet of that room and kissed him. with the folder still in one hand and her shoes still in the other, and his palm came up under her jaw, the way a man touches something he has already been careful with for a very long time. The lamp stayed on until almost 4. They talked, mostly, in the way people talk when the expensive part is already over, about a heater in Dundalk, about a boy on a staircase in Busan who was told which fork, about the 4 words Yoon had used at that table on Monday, and what a 1-word answer had cost in a room with the doors closed. At some point, she asked whether he had opened the second lacquer door for anyone before. He said no. She asked how many keys existed. He said 1, and put it on the desk between them, and left it there when they went upstairs. The sun came up over the east lawn at 6:10, and Destiny woke in a bed on the 3rd floor, with the emerald dress over a chair, and she went down to the kitchen out of 18 months of habit and started the water before she understood she was doing it. Ji-hoon came in at 7, not 7:12, 7. He was in shirt sleeves. He had a single sheet of paper. He put it on the counter between them, 1 page, English on the left, Korean on the right, the column 1 line longer, her full name at the bottom in her own careful hand. He tore it in half, then in quarters. He did it slowly, so she could watch each one. There was never a contract, he said. I signed it. Yes, you signed a piece of theater about a marriage that was never required. He set the pieces down in a small pile. Seo Il-nam signed the birthing agreement on Tuesday morning, 2 days before the reception. Every crane in that water has moved on my order for 18 months, and he was never going to hand that to a rival because of a wedding. Yoon knew by Wednesday. She held the counter. Say the rest of it. The photograph is still in my jacket, he said. I never turned it over. Yoon put a woman face down on my table and asked me to build a life on top of her, and I left her the way he set her down, because looking would have been a kind of agreement. He took it out then, still face down, and laid it beside the torn pieces. You can turn it. I'd rather you did it than me. Destiny left it where it was. Then what was Friday? Yoon needed a woman to exist. My father's generation understands a house, not a man. He looked at the torn pile. And I needed one night in which you were allowed to stand next to me in a room with the lights on, without you having to decide anything. That was the only way I could think of to buy it. It was not a kind way. I know what it was. You could have asked me. You would have said yes, because I own your envelope, he said. That's why I made it a contract. A woman signing a contract can refuse a man on Sunday. A maid can't. Destiny looked at the water coming to temperature and did not answer for a while. You made a whole night of my life a lie, so that the yes would be real. Yes. That's the most complicated thing anyone has ever done for me. I'm aware. She swept the pieces into her hand. She didn't throw them away. Yoon Sang-hoon received them at 9, in the East Room, at the head of the table he had taken without invitation, 5 days before. Ji-hoon put the torn quarters down in front of him and did not sit. The agreement was signed Tuesday, Ji-hoon said. You've known since Wednesday. You spent Friday collecting a debt that doesn't exist. Yoon arranged the pieces with one finger. The jade ring clicked once on the wood. You told me you had someone, he said. I assumed you had bought someone. That is what I would have done. He looked past Ji-hoon to the doorway, where Destiny stood, not against the wall, in the doorway, in a plain gray dress, no apron. Aegu. He asked Ji-hoon something in Korean. 4 words, the same 4 words as Monday. And Ji-hoon gave the same 1-word answer, and this time he gave it in English, so that the woman in the doorway would hear it. Yes. Yoon took his cane. At the door he stopped in front of her, and he was shorter than she had remembered. 6 words, he said. You were allowed 6. You'll get 4, Destiny said. Take the cup yourself. The old man made a sound that in another man would have been a laugh, and went out to his car. By 11, Vincent Calloway's counsel had been informed that his participation in the Newark terminal was concluded and that the buyout figure was not negotiable. By noon, the folder from the black lacquer room was in the hands of a lawyer in Baltimore who had spent 9 years failing to find who owned page 6. Destiny made that call herself, from the kitchen, with the phone braced on her shoulder, out of habit. The apron was still tied at her waist while she said the last of it. She noticed that only after she hung up. Loretta Bishop came in while she was still on it, put the household keys down on the counter, all of them, the ring, the little gold cross swinging off the cord beside it, and pushed them across with 2 fingers. 40 years, Loretta said. I've been waiting to hand these to somebody who reads the room instead of the silver. Loretta, hang up the apron, baby. Destiny hung it on the hook by the pantry door, where it had lived for 18 months, and she left it there, and neither of them said anything else about it. The Baltimore lawyer asked her twice how she had come by the folder. Destiny gave the same answer both times. It was handed to her. He asked who by, and she said the owner, and there was a silence on the line long enough for her to hear a train go past his window. You understand what this does to him, the lawyer said. He counted, she said, and gave him the address for the courier. Min-jae learned the truth at 1 in the afternoon, from the payroll office, when a name appeared on a printed list for the first time. He stood in the corridor holding the page for a while. Then he laughed, alone, and went to reset the gate codes. Ji-hoon found her at dusk on the terrace steps with the 3rd cup of the day, made at no particular time, steeped for as long as it liked. They'll say I hired you, he said. Destiny handed him the cup, handle at 4 o'clock, out of pure muscle memory, and took it back off him before he could drink, and drank it herself. Let them, she said. For 18 months, every soul in this house believed I was nobody, and you and I stood in the same rooms every single day, pretending we didn't know better. She looked out at the water. 2 years from now, nobody will remember what I wore. They'll remember that he set the glass down. The keys were heavier than she expected. Destiny carried them down from the terrace stairs in her closed hand, and by the second landing, the metal had warmed to the temperature of her palm. 11 keys. She had counted them without deciding to. Loretta had carried this weight against her hip for 40 years, and never once let it make a sound while a guest was awake. Ji-hoon stopped at the bottom of the stairs. There's a hook by the office door. I know where the hook is. You've never used it. I've dusted it, she said, and kept walking. Sunday came into the house the way it always did, gray at first, then gold across the East Hall floor. Destiny woke at 5:40 without an alarm, because 18 months of a body cannot be argued with in one night. She lay still for a moment. Then she got up, because lying still was worse. The uniform hung on the back of the door where it had hung since the first week, black, white, pressed on Thursday by her own hand. She looked at it, and her hand went halfway toward it before she stopped the hand, the same way she had stopped it under the chandelier. She wore the gray dress again. The kitchen was empty. The kettle was cold. She filled it and stood at the counter, listening to it climb toward sound. And that was when she understood the shape of the problem. Nobody had told her what she was supposed to do at 6 in the morning now. Loretta came in at 6:15 with her cardigan buttoned wrong and stopped in the doorway. You're up. So are you. I've been up since 4, baby. I don't sleep, I rehearse. Loretta crossed to the second cabinet, took down 2 cups, and set them both on the counter. She pushed one toward Destiny. Sit. Loretta, sit down before I make it an instruction. Destiny sat. The chair was the same chair. The table was the same table. The woman across from her folded her hands and looked at her for a long moment over the top of the reading glasses, and did not blink first. You handed me the keys, Destiny said. I did. You didn't ask me if I wanted them. No, I did not. Loretta poured. The steam went up between them. 40 years I've watched women get promoted in houses like this, and every last one of them got asked. You know what asking is in a house like this? It's a man giving you a chance to say no, so he can say you had a choice when he takes it back. He didn't ask either. He didn't have to. He didn't give you the keys. Loretta tapped the table once with her fingernail. I did. That's mine. That's the one thing in this house that was mine to hand over, and I handed it to you, and now no man in here can take it off you without going through me first. Destiny turned the cup a quarter turn so the handle sat at 4 o'clock. She noticed herself doing it. She left it there anyway. Aigu, Loretta said softly, watching. 18 months. It's a habit. It's a language. That's different. Loretta sat back. Now, the house. There are 9 people on the payroll. 4 you've never spoken to, because they come Tuesdays for the grounds. There's a man in Queens who does the linens and overcharges by 11%, and I've been letting him, because his wife has a bad hip and I'm sentimental. You want to fire him, fire him. It's yours now. I'm not firing anybody. Good answer, wrong reason. Loretta pointed at her. You'll fire somebody eventually. Do it because they steal, not because they're expensive. Expensive is a number. Stealing is a character. Destiny wrote nothing down. She didn't need to. She had run a residential floor at 23 with 61 rooms and a staff of 14, and she had never once needed paper for the part that mattered. The garage door went up at 7:20. They both heard it. Loretta's eyes went to the window over the sink and stayed there. That'll be Min-jae. He changed the gate codes yesterday. He changed them again this morning. Boy's been up all night doing math. Park Min-jae came in through the service door with his earpiece out and hanging over his shoulder, and he stopped when he saw who was sitting at the table, and something moved across his face that he did not manage to hide in time. Good morning, Destiny said. Good morning. He stood there. Then, because he had never been able to hold a silence in his life, nobody told me. I know. 18 months. I stole a pair off you on Thursday. He put a hand on the back of a chair, didn't sit. I offered to walk you through the service corridor. You did. He heard about that. He did. Min-jae shut his eyes for exactly 1 second. I'd like to keep my job. Then keep it. Destiny stood, and she felt the small shift in the room when she did, the way the two of them adjusted, the way a room adjusts when the person who used to be furniture starts moving on their own. The gate codes. You changed them twice in 20 hours. Standard after an event. That's not why. He looked at Loretta. Loretta looked at the ceiling and drank her coffee. He looked back. Callaway's driver came up the service road at 6:10 this morning, Min-jae said. Not Callaway. His driver. Sat at the bottom of the hill for 9 minutes with the engine on. The kettle ticked as it cooled. Did he come up? No. Then why was he here? Counting, Min-jae said. Cars, windows. Which ones had lights on? He shifted his weight. It's what you do before you send someone who isn't a driver. Destiny set her cup down. Does Ji-hoon know? I told him at 6:30. What did he say? He said to tell you. Min-jae's mouth did something that was almost the dimpled smile and then decided against it. That's why I came in here instead of the office. He said the house is yours now, and the house includes who drives up to it. She held that for a moment. Then she picked up the keys off the table, and she said, Show me the service road. They walked it. Not the manicured front approach with the gravel Loretta had gotten right in 1998 and never changed. The back way, the delivery cut through the trees where the vans came Tuesdays, where 2 men had refused to let Loretta sign for a white box on Thursday afternoon. Min-jae talked the whole way because he was 26 and because he had 11 hours of unshared information in him. 2 cameras. That one's fine. That one's been pointed at a hedge since March because a landscaper knocked it and nobody reported it. Nobody reported it because nobody was asked. Yeah. Fix the angle today, not tomorrow. Today. He wrote it in a small notebook with a pencil, which surprised her, and then didn't. There's a third camera on the pole, but the pole belongs to the county. Then it belongs to whoever pays the county. She stopped where the road bent, and turned, and looked back up at the house. From here, you could see the east wing entirely, 9 windows. The library was the third from the left on the lower floor, and you could see the low shelf under it as a dark line, and if you stood exactly here at 6 in the morning with binoculars, you could see straight through to the second cabinet in the kitchen where a woman kept the tea. Destiny stood in that spot a while. He sat here for 9 minutes, she said, give or take. Then he wasn't counting cars. Min-jae followed her eyeline up the hill, and his face changed. He didn't say anything for a moment. Then, I'll put a man on this bend. No, she turned. Put a truck on it. A truck? A landscaping truck. A real one, with a real crew, doing real work on that hedge for 3 days. She started back up the hill. A man standing in the trees tells them we saw. 6 men with a wood chipper tells them nothing at all, and they can't get within 200 feet of this bend without a conversation. Min-jae wrote it down. He wrote it slowly, the way people write things they intend to repeat later and take credit for hearing first. Ma'am, don't. Right, sorry. He put the notebook away. It's just, nobody's ever told me to think about the story a thing tells. Only whether it works. Everything works, that's the low bar. She was 6 steps ahead of him now. The question is what it says about the people who did it. Ji-hoon was on the terrace steps with the newspaper he never read, and a cup he had poured himself. He watched her come up the hill with Min-jae half a pace behind, and he did not stand, and he did not smile, but something in the set of his shoulders came down about an inch. You went to the bend, he said. You knew I would. I hoped. He moved over on the step. She sat. Min-jae looked at the two of them, said something in Korean that was very short and clearly a request to be dismissed, and got a single syllable back, and left almost running. He's terrified of you, Destiny said. He's terrified of you. I'm just the one he already knows the rules for. Ji-hoon turned the cup in his hands. The chipper was good. You were listening. He has a radio in his pocket and no discipline about the button. Ji-hoon drank. Vincent will send someone tomorrow. Not a driver. A lawyer first. Probably 2. And they'll come up the front with an appointment, because he still thinks the front is where things are decided. And if it isn't a lawyer, then it isn't. He said it without any weight at all, which was its own kind of weight. Destiny looked out at the grounds. Somewhere below, a gate motor engaged and disengaged. 22 years old, she said. What is? My grandmother's building. It was already 40 when she started cleaning at the Bellamy, and she used to say the building would outlive her because they built it before anybody knew how to build cheap. She kept looking out. It's still standing. Empty. 9 floors of nobody. Since 2019. Page 6. Page 6. She turned her head. Your lawyer's going to call me Monday and ask what I want done with it. He'll call you today. He worked last night. Then what do I tell him? Ji-hoon set the cup down on the stone step. That's not a question you ask me. I'm not asking permission. I'm asking a man who owns 19 buildings what happens to a building when a woman like me starts making noise about it. Ah, he nodded slowly. Then the answer is, it takes 4 years, it costs more than the building, and somewhere in the 2nd year, a man you've never met will offer you a number to stop. He picked the cup back up, and the number will be good. How good? Good enough that turning it down has to be a decision you make in advance, in a room like this one, on a morning when nobody's offering you anything. He looked at her. So make it now. The sun came the rest of the way over the trees. I'm not selling my grandmother's last address, Destiny said. Then that's done. He said it the way other men say, pass the salt. and stood, and put out his hand for her cup so he could carry both inside, and she gave it to him, and neither of them made anything of it. At 9, the phone rang in the office, and it was Baltimore. The lawyer's name was Ellery Fitch, and he had a voice like a man who slept 4 hours and enjoyed it. He had read to page 210 of 400. He had questions. "Ms. Graham, I have to ask this once, and then I'll never ask again." "Ask." "The party who released these documents, is he going to change his mind on a Thursday 6 months from now and call this privileged?" "No. You understand I have to press. People change." "He tore up a contract in front of me yesterday morning," Destiny said, "in 4 pieces. I kept them." There was a pause on the line of exactly the right length. "Ma'am, would you consider having those pieces photographed? They're not evidence of anything. Everything's evidence of something." Papers moved. Page 6 is not the interesting page. She sat down. "Which page is?" "Page 141. There's a second name on the financing side that doesn't appear anywhere in the front matter. A holding entity out of Wilmington, and its registered agent also serviced a portside warehouse trust that filed for a Newark terminal concession in 2021. Fitch cleared his throat. "Ms. Graham, your grandmother's building wasn't bought for the building. It was bought for the row. It was bought for a permit." 9 addresses on Charles Street, inside a redevelopment overlay. You need contiguous frontage to trigger the tax abatement, and you need the abatement to make the terminal financing pencil out. A pen clicked. Somebody emptied 9 buildings in 90 days so a completely different project 2 states away could get cheaper money. Destiny put her hand flat on the desk. "My grandmother," she said, "died in a rented room in Dundalk with a broken heater so a warehouse in New Jersey could pay less interest. I would not say that to a reporter yet." "I didn't say it to a reporter." "No, ma'am, you did not." Fitch's voice softened by 1 degree, and then went back to work. "I need something from you, and it isn't money. I need the tenants. 9 buildings, 90 days, 2019. Some of them are dead. Most of them moved twice. If I file with paper alone, it's a document dispute, and document disputes settle quietly for a number. If I file with 40 living people who can each describe one 90-day period, it's something else entirely. How long do I have to find them? The statute gives me until March, practically 60 days before the other side finishes the same math and starts making generous phone calls to elderly people in Dundalk." She was writing now. She had found a pen in a drawer that wasn't hers a day ago. 40 people, she said. 40 would be a miracle. I'd take 12. You'll get more than 12. Ms. Graham, with respect, people don't answer the door for lawyers. They'll answer for me. She underlined it twice, and stopped, and looked at the double line on the page for a second longer than she meant to. "My grandmother cleaned rooms on Charles Street for 31 years. There isn't a church basement in that neighborhood where somebody doesn't know her name." A long breath on the line. "Then I'll draft the intake sheets tonight." She hung up and sat in the chair and did not move for some time. When she looked up, Jihoon was in the doorway. She had no idea how long. His face gave her nothing except that he had heard enough of it. 60 days, she said. "I heard. I'd have to go there." "Yes. For weeks, maybe longer." She turned the pen over. Rooms, church basements, a woman named Odessa who ran the laundry and knew everybody's business and hated my grandmother for 40 years and would still testify for her, because that's how it works down there. And the house? Loretta ran this house for 40 years before I picked up a key. She'll survive 9 weeks. He came in and stood at the corner of the desk. He didn't sit. "You're waiting for me to say something," she said. "I'm waiting for you to notice you're asking." Destiny set the pen down. "I'm not asking." "No." Something moved at the edge of his mouth and was gone. "You're telling me you're going." and watching to see if I'm the kind of man who has to be told twice. Are you? I put your name on a payroll yesterday, for the first time in 18 months. He straightened the edge of a folder that did not need straightening, and stopped himself and left it crooked. You can be anywhere you want, but not alone and not on a bus. Minjae? Minjae stays here because Vincent's driver sat at that bend this morning, and the person he was counting windows for is you. He said it plainly. I'll send someone you've never met. He'll drive you, and he'll carry your bag, and he will not come into the church basement. And you? Ji-hoon looked at the window for a moment. There's a thing you should understand before you go, he said, because I'd rather you hear it in this room than from Ellery Fitch on page 300. He turned. My father's partner bought those 9 buildings. I inherited them in 2020, and for 4 years I let a management company collect nothing off 9 empty buildings, and I never once asked why 9 or why 90 days. You didn't know. I didn't ask. He let that sit. That's not the same thing, and you're the only person alive who gets to decide whether it's close enough. The house made its small sounds around them, a door in the west hall, water somewhere, Loretta's voice giving an instruction to somebody about linens. Destiny stood up and came around the desk. Sit down, she said. Destiny. Sit down, Ji-hoon. You've been standing since 7. She pulled the chair out with her foot. 60 days, 12 people minimum. I need somebody to take the tenant list and cross it against every death certificate filed in Baltimore County since 2019, because half the names Fitch gives me are going to be graves, and I don't want to hear that from a stranger's front door. He sat. That's what I get? He said. Records. That's what you get. It's the worst job, and it's 400 pages, and you're going to do it at that desk, while I'm 8 states away. 3 states. Do it anyway. She put her hand on the back of the chair, not on him. You had a file on me 11 pages long before you ever hired me. Now, go find one on everybody else. And when I find them, she said, you don't come to Baltimore. I wasn't going to offer. Yes, you were. I was going to offer badly, and you were going to refuse, and we'd have lost an hour. He leaned back. A Korean man in a suit, standing at the back of a church basement in Baltimore, turns 40 witnesses into 4. Now you're learning what a thing says. I've always known what a thing says. I've never had a reason to care. He picked up the crooked folder, and this time he did straighten it. Take the gray coat, the good one, from the closet on 3. The one that came with the dress. It came with nothing. I bought it in November. He set it to the folder. Loretta hangs the winter things in October, and I put it in there in November, and it's been there since, and every year she moves it 2 inches to the left and never asks whose it is. Destiny stood very still. November, she said. Month 6. You'd known me 6 months. I'd known you 3. He looked up. It took me until November to buy the coat, and until now to say so, and I'd like the record to show I did it on a morning when you were already leaving. The phone on the desk rang again. They both looked at it. It rang a second time. Ji-hoon reached over and turned the display toward her so she could see the number, and it was not Baltimore, and it was not any number she had seen in 18 months of answering doors in that house. It was a 212 exchange, and under it, the caller ID had resolved a name, and the name was Calloway V. Legal. Destiny did not pick it up. She let it ring a 3rd time, a 4th. Then she reached past Ji-hoon's shoulder, put it on speaker herself, and said, Kang Residence. The voice on the speaker took 2 seconds to arrive, and when it did, it had the flatness of a man reading from a page he had written himself. This is Douglas Reiner, counsel for Calloway Holdings. I need Mr. Kang. Destiny kept her hand flat on the desk beside the phone. Ji-hoon stayed in the chair. He turned one palm up toward her and let it rest there. "Mr. Kang is in the house," she said. "You're speaking to the person who takes his calls." "And you are?" "Destiny Graham." Paper moved on the other end, not one sheet. A stack being squared against a table, the way a man does when he wants you to hear that he has documents. "Miss Graham, my client received a notice at 6:50 this morning, terminating his participation in the Newark terminal. The notice cites cause. My client disputes cause. He's welcome to." There's a purchase figure attached to the notice. It isn't negotiable, according to the language. It isn't. Reiner exhaled through his nose. "Everything is negotiable, Ms. Graham." "Then he should have negotiated on Friday," she said. "He had the whole room." The pause after that was the first honest thing the man had offered. Ji-hoon's mouth moved a quarter inch and settled again. "I'm going to ask you something directly," Reiner said. "Is Mr. Kang aware of any filing being prepared in the state of Maryland?" Destiny looked at the phone. She did not look at Ji-hoon, and that was deliberate, because the man on the line could not see either of them, and she wanted the silence to belong only to her. "Why would you ask about Maryland?" she said. "Because I'm thorough." "You're not thorough, Mr. Reiner. You're early." She let that sit. Nobody's thorough at 9:20 on a Sunday. Thorough is Tuesday. Early is a man who already knows what's in a folder and is calling to find out who else has it. The stack of paper went still. "I'd like to speak with Mr. Kang." "He can hear you." "Then I'd like him to speak." Ji-hoon leaned forward, one forearm on the desk, and said 4 words toward the speaker. "She has the house." Reiner started to answer. Destiny reached over and ended the call with one finger, the way she used to close a service door with her hip, clean, without noise, without announcing that it had been done. She stood there afterward with her hand still on the phone. Ji-hoon watched her. "You hung up on a lawyer," he said. "He'll call back at 11. Let him spend the 2 hours wondering which of us decided. And if he calls the Baltimore office instead? Then Fitch learns what they're afraid of before they learn what he has." She picked up the pen by the blotter and wrote, "Reiner, 9:20, asked about Maryland." On the corner of the desk pad, tore the corner off and folded it. That question was worth more than the call. Ji-hoon took the folded corner from her fingers and read it twice. "You understand what he told you," he said. "He told me somebody on his side already knew there were 9 buildings on one frontage, and knew it in 2019. She sat on the edge of the desk. "You don't call about Maryland on a Sunday for a terminal in Newark. Not unless the 2 things are the same thing to you." Well, Ji-hoon turned the folded corner over between 2 fingers. "My father's people had a rule about calls like that. Never answer the first one. Your father's people also thought a man's word was worth 9 years, and then found out it was rent." She said it without heat, and he took it without flinching. "The first call is the only one where they're still guessing. After that, they've read your voice." "And what did he read in yours?" "That the house has a woman in it who knows what frontage means." She smoothed the pad where she'd torn the corner. "That's the part he'll report. He won't report the rest, because he doesn't have the rest." By 9:40, the folded paper was in an envelope with the day and hour written on the outside, and the envelope was in the second drawer, which she did not lock, because Loretta had told her once that a locked drawer is an invitation, and an unlocked one is furniture. She found Loretta in the linen room counting pillowcases into stacks of 6. "They called," Destiny said. "I heard the ring." Loretta did not stop counting. 4 times before anybody picked up. In this house, that means something got decided in the hallway. "I picked up. 6. She set the stack down. "That's the part I wanted to hear." Destiny leaned in the doorway. "I need you to do something, and I need you to not like it. Those are my favorite. Everything that comes into this house for the next 60 days gets written down. Deliveries, meter readers, the linen truck, anyone who wants to look at the boiler. Name, company, plate, time in, time out. Loretta's hands went still on the linen. You think somebody's coming through the front. I think a man who sends a driver to count windows at 6 in the morning has already been told no once and doesn't take it well. Destiny crossed and picked up a pillowcase, folded it out of pure habit, and put it on the stack. And I think a house with 9 people on the payroll has 9 ways in. 8, Loretta said. The mudroom door's been swollen shut since March. Nobody fixed it because nobody uses it. Fix it, then use it, then write down who does. Loretta took her reading glasses off the beaded chain, breathed on them, cleaned them on the cardigan. It was the closest thing to applause she gave anyone. You want the book in the kitchen or the office? Kitchen, where people can see you writing it. Loretta wrote the first line herself before Destiny left the room. Sunday. Nobody yet. And underlined the date twice, because a book that starts empty is a book somebody can claim started later. One thing, she said as Destiny reached the door, the linen man from Queens comes Thursday. The 11%. Let him come. Let him see the book. Let him sign it. Destiny paused with her hand on the frame. Then Friday, call him and ask about his wife's hip. Don't mention the invoice at all. Loretta's smile arrived slow. That's cruel. That's a discount. At 10:15 Min Jae came in through the terrace door with grass on his boots and a phone in his hand. Cameras turned, he said. Whole hedge run. And the county poll. I called the county. On a Sunday. I called the non-emergency line and asked whether the pole camera at the top of Ridge Service Road was theirs. He looked pleased with himself in a way that made him look 22 instead of 26. They said they'd get back to me. Which means it isn't theirs, Destiny said. The pleased look left his face. Which means it isn't theirs. Ji-hoon had come to the door behind her. He said nothing for a moment. Then, don't touch it. Min Jae's chin came up. I can have it down in 4 minutes. And then, whoever hung it knows we found it and hangs the next one somewhere we won't. Ji-hoon looked at Destiny, and it was not a look asking her to agree. It was a look handing her the last word. She turned it over. She thought about 9 windows in the east wing and the second cupboard in the kitchen, and a man measuring a house because of what was inside it. Leave it, she said. But put the gardening crew on the curve tomorrow like I said. 3 days, real crew, real chipper. Let whatever's on that pole watch 6 men with a wood chipper for 3 days and get bored. And after 3 days? After 3 days, the hedge is 8 feet tall and the pole's looking at a wall. Min Jae grinned, wrote something on his forearm with a pen because he had no paper, and went back out through the terrace door. Ji-hoon stayed. You gave him an order in front of me, he said. You gave him one first. I did. He put his hands in his pockets. I'm telling you that it worked. Not correcting you. She let out a breath she'd been carrying since the phone rang. I keep waiting for the part where someone tells me to go get a tray. Nobody in this house is going to do that. Somebody will, she said. It just won't be somebody who lives here. Fitch called back at 11:05, ahead of Reiner, and that mattered. Page 291, he said, with no greeting. Are you sitting? I'm standing in a kitchen with a woman counting pillowcases. Then keep standing. 291 is a relocation assistance ledger. Somebody in 2019 budgeted $4,100 per displaced household, and somebody else drew a line through the whole column and wrote, N.A. Voluntary vacancy. Destiny put one hand on the counter. Loretta, without being asked, pulled out the stool and pushed it against the back of her knees, and she sat. Voluntary, she said. That word is why I'm calling on a Sunday, Ms. Graham. Because if 90 days is voluntary, then every tenant signed something. And if every tenant signed something, Then somewhere, there are between 40 and 200 signatures with dates on them, and dates are the whole case. A chair creaked in Baltimore. Find me one person who still has their copy. My grandmother kept everything, Destiny said. Rent receipts back to 1989. She had a shoebox with a rubber band around it. Where is the shoebox? Dundalk, in a room I paid to keep for 11 months after she died, because I couldn't make the call to empty it. She heard how flat her own voice had gone and let it stay flat. Then I made the call. It's in a storage unit off Holabird. I have the key on my ring. Ms. Graham. Fitch's voice changed shape. How much of that unit is paper? Half of it. Then that's where you start. Not the church basements. The unit. Tuesday, she said. Tuesday. She hung up and sat on the stool without moving. Loretta went back to the linen and started a new stack of 6 and let her have the quiet, which was a kindness dressed up as indifference. Ji-hoon came in 11 minutes later with a printed page in his hand and put it on the counter face up. He had ink on the side of his hand, the way a man gets when he writes for 4 hours and never once turns the page over to check his own work. 22, he said. 22 what? Names from the tenant list that appear in Baltimore County death records since 2019. He kept his fingers on the edge of the page. 9 of them in the first 18 months, 2 of them at the same address in Dundalk. Destiny looked at the page for a long moment and did not pick it up. Read me the 2. He read them. The second name was a woman who had run a laundry on Charles Street and spent 40 years disagreeing with her grandmother about everything a person could disagree about. Hours, prices, whose radio was too loud, whether a stoop counted as inside or outside. Odessa, Destiny said. March, 14 months ago. She put her palm flat on the printed page, over the ink, the way you'd put a hand on someone's back. Then, it's 12 minus 2, she said. Fitch wants 12. I was counting on her for 4 of them, because she knew everybody's business, and she wrote it down out of spite. Somebody has what she wrote down. Somebody's daughter has it in a garage. Destiny stood. That's Wednesday. Ji-hoon did not move his hand off the counter. 20 of the 22 were over 70. I know. Fitch said 60 days because of March. That isn't why it's 60 days. No. She squared the page against the counter edge. Once, the way Reiner had squared his stack, and heard the resemblance and hated it. It's 60 days, because the list gets shorter every month I spend deciding. He looked at the ceiling for a moment, which she had never seen him do. In Busan, there was a building my father emptied, he said. I was 19. I carried a box down 4 flights for a woman who thanked me. He put his hand flat over the names, next to hers, not touching. I have thought about that box, maybe twice in 17 years. That's the whole confession. Not that I did it, that I didn't think about it. You're thinking about it now, because you made a list. He drew his hand back. That's what a list does. It stops being weather and starts being names. She did not answer that, because Loretta had come to the doorway with a fresh stack of 6, and stopped, and stayed, and did not pretend to be doing anything else. She folded the page into thirds, and put it in the envelope with the Reiner note, and the envelope was no longer a note. It was a file, and the file had a first page, and the first page was 22 names. At 1, Reiner called back. She let it ring 4 times again, not because she needed the seconds now, but because the house had already learned what 4 rings meant, and a thing that teaches a house is worth keeping. Ms. Graham, Mr. Reiner, my client would like to propose a meeting. Where? His attorney's offices, Midtown, Tuesday. I'm in Baltimore, Tuesday. The pause on the line was 3 full seconds, and in those 3 seconds, Destiny watched Ji-hoon's face and saw the corner of his mouth do the thing it did. That's an unusual disclosure, Reiner said. It's not a disclosure, it's a calendar. She turned the phone slightly on the desk. Your client had a driver on our service road at 6:10 this morning for 9 minutes. So either you knew and you're wasting my time asking about Maryland, or you didn't know, and your client is doing things his lawyer hasn't been told about. I'd think about which of those is worse for you. Nothing came back for a while. When it did, it came back quieter and without the paper. Ms. Graham, off the record. There's no such thing in a house with a speakerphone. What does your side actually want? She thought about the answer for exactly as long as it took to be sure she meant it. 9 buildings on Charles Street, she said, emptied in 90 days, so the frontage would run clean. Everyone who signed a voluntary vacancy in 2019 gets found, and everyone who's still alive gets told what they signed and why. That's what my side wants. And the money? There's no number that buys a woman a heater in February 4 years ago. She heard herself and slowed down, because Martha's people never shout, and neither did she. Tell your client the building on page 6 isn't for sale. Not this year. Not in the second year when he sends someone with a good number and a soft voice. Tell him now so he doesn't waste the trip. Ms. Graham, if there's a filing, my client will countersue the entity that produced the documents. You understand that entity is in the room with you. He knows. Does he? Ji-hoon leaned toward the phone for the second time that day. Tell Vincent the documents left this house in my hand. A beat. Tell him I'll say that under oath, and he can decide whether he'd like me to say the rest of it too. Reiner took a breath that came through the speaker like paper tearing. I'll relay that. Relay it in writing, she said. I keep everything. The line went dead from his side this time, which she counted as a small loss and a larger win. Ji-hoon was quiet for a while after, then he crossed the office and took down the gray coat from the hook by the door. Someone had moved it from the 3rd-floor closet that morning, and nobody had said who, and held it out. Walk with me to the gate, he said. Min Jae's changing the codes again, and I want you to be the one who sets the new one. She put the coat on. It fit the way a thing fits when it was bought for a specific pair of shoulders in November, by a man who had counted her months in the house without ever once saying her name at breakfast. You bought this in November, she said, halfway down the drive. Yes, and left it in a closet for 8 months. I bought it the week I understood I was going to keep you here, without telling you why. He watched the gravel ahead of them. A coat you can't give somebody is easier to buy than a sentence you can't say. She put her hands in the pockets and found them still stitched shut at the seams. Factory thread, never opened. She left them that way. At the gate, Min Jae had the keypad open with 2 wires in his teeth. He spat them out and handed her the panel. 6 digits, he said. Not a birthday. Destiny thought about it and typed 310090. Min Jae frowned at the screen. That's not a date. 31 years, she said. 90 days. He looked at her, and then at Ji-hoon, and then decided he did not need the rest of it, and closed the panel. The gate ran shut on its track. From the top of the service road, where a camera nobody owned sat on a county pole watching a house, the last thing it would have seen that Sunday was a woman in a gray coat standing on the inside of a closed gate, not going anywhere, writing something down. Then she turned toward the house and said, without looking back, Tuesday I take the shoebox. Wednesday I take the garage. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Tell me, my loves, have you ever been handed an empty glass by someone who never once looked at your face? Have you ever agreed to pretend, because pretending felt safer than believing you were wanted? Mark my words. Some contracts are written only to be torn. Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about dignity, devotion, and truth, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.